BBC One continues to be your protective bubble.
All around us, in every part of the UK, are skilled teams of eagle-eyed men and women, working alongside the police to keep us safe. They're the people on the front line, tackling the hazards that place us in danger.
This is not something you want anyone at all to ever experience.
They're cracking down on those who threaten our families.
These people prey on vulnerable people. They're just the lowest of the low.
They're protecting us on the streets and in our homes.
With telephone calls now, I don't answer it. That's how scared I am.
These men and women make up the UK's enforcement teams, our defenders. Today, our defenders investigate a fraudster making false claims about a scanner that she says detects breast cancer.
The fact that there was somebody out there using a machine that doesn't do what they say it can do really makes me sick to the stomach.
And they crack down on a company running party boats, putting public safety at risk.
If 145 passengers were still on board, that could have been absolutely devastating.
This thermal imaging camera is being marketed as a revolutionary screening service, able to detect breast cancer years before a standard breast scan. But it's a con. The truth is, this device isn't medically approved, and there's no evidence it can detect breast cancer. For 20 years, Lisa Fisher worked as a clinical photographer with the NHS. Lisa has seen firsthand how critical an early diagnosis can be.
I've worked with ladies who were diagnosed quite late in the day, who didn't have such good outcomes.
For Lisa, a career in clinical photography enabled her to make a difference.
It was a very rewarding job, helping the patients, providing useful photographs for their diagnosis and treatment and monitoring their conditions. I like to make a difference. I like to help people and provide reassurance for people as I work.
Lisa's other great passion is horse riding.
I worked with competition horses, race horses, and I had horses of my own for most of my life. My first passion was horses, and my second one was photography.
Lisa was browsing through a horse riding magazine when she spotted a career opportunity that combined both of her interests. A company called Sync Thermology Limited was looking for people to use thermal imaging cameras to detect medical issues in horses.
It was really interesting for me because imaging is what I did in my day job and had done for 15 years at that time, so it wasn't dissimilar to what I was already doing, but it brought the horse side of things back into my life because that's what I really enjoyed, so I thought it was a nice opportunity.
Lisa contacted Sync Thermology and spoke to the company's managing director.
I was really convinced by that first call. It sounded so professional. She really talked the talk. She was very confident with what she'd done so far. She was offering equine scanning, canine scanning.
The thermal imaging camera was called a VET 2000. Lisa was told that despite its name, it could be used not only on horses, but on people. In fact, they'd already set up clinics offering a breast screening service.
What swung it for me was the fact she'd done the human screening side of things as well, which is so similar to the job I was doing. She made the company sound very well established and that she'd been very successful.
Lisa was told the VET 2000 was completely safe to use, was approved by the Medicine and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, the MHRA, and could detect breast abnormalities earlier than a standard scan.
For me, that was like, OK, this is legitimate. It's been registered with the appropriate medical authorities. They've really taken this seriously. So, yeah, I was convinced.
It sounded like an exciting opportunity to make a real difference.
The fact that this was being advertised to be finding disease 10 years earlier than standard mammogram was a huge thing, really. So for me, that was like, you know, wow, it would have been an amazing technology for people.
If Lisa wanted to set up her own clinic using the VET 2000, it would cost around £20,000. By now, she was seriously interested.
I did ask if I would need a separate camera to use on humans rather than using the same one on horses and humans, and she said absolutely not. She was very, very convincing. She was very quick and had a very good answer for everything. She really could sell ice to the Eskimos.
Lisa was told that she'd receive gold standard world-class training and that she'd qualify with the British College of Veterinary Thermography. It sounded great, so Lisa agreed to invest £20,000.
And that included the equipment, the training, various marketing materials and the camera, so that was everything. When something sounds so good, you don't want to miss out, and it did sound that good.
Sylvia Rook is a Trading Standards Officer at Warwickshire County Council. Sylvia is also the lead officer for fair trading at the Chartered Trading Standards Institute.
What I'd say to people is, if you do a lot of checks up front, don't get rushed into anything, don't feel pressurised. Look into businesses as much as you can before you enter into a contract. Take control.
I suppose in the cold light of day, if I thought about it, I wouldn't normally invest the amount of money that I did without thinking about it for a lot longer.
Putting any doubts to one side, Lisa started making payments. It was a decision she'd come to regret.
I had my initial training. This was not world-class gold standard training. I've completed 2 degrees and I've also done part-time studies. I've done various training throughout my career and this fell way short of the mark. This didn't even equate to basic mandatory training.
Then Lisa made a discovery that completely undermined everything she'd been told. The British College of Veterinary Thermography didn't exist. Her qualification was worthless.
It became clear that the British College of Veterinary Thermography was a fantasy in her own mind. It was something that she thought she would call herself as a deliverer of this diploma that hadn't been approved by any educational body at all. I was really annoyed. My job, you have to be professionally qualified, you have to be professionally registered to practice, and the fact that she'd duped us into non-existent qualifications by a non-existent training body, it was infuriating.
By now, Lisa had invested the full £20,000. Realising she'd been conned, Lisa contacted the MD of Sync Thermology and demanded her money back. Instead, she was offered a £10,500 refund, just over half her original investment.
She said that she was doing me a giant favour doing that, and I think at this point I thought, if I'm not careful, I'm going to get nothing. You know, if I wind her up, that's going to be the end of it. So I accepted the 10.5 on that basis.
Feeling ripped off, Lisa reported the matter to Trading Standards. She quickly discovered that she wasn't the only person to be taken in by this scam.
We received a number of complaints in relation to digital infrared thermal imaging.
Darren Mountford is the Principal Trading Standards Officer for Staffordshire County Council.
We took the complaints in, we made further inquiries, and we also started to receive information and complaints regarding the medical efficacy of some of the imaging equipment.
Darren is our defender.
This is the VET 2000 secured as evidence as part of the investigation. It was marketed that this device could detect breast abnormalities and breast cancer 8 to 10 years before a mammogram.
The truth was, the VET 2000 hadn't been approved. Its use in a medical setting was completely unauthorised.
For them to make claims that a machine used in a veterinary setting can detect breast cancer 8 to 10 years before a mammogram is just outrageous.
Later, Darren embarks on a complex 5-year investigation to uncover the truth.
This type of device would never be used within the NHS for the detection of breast cancer, and if it were to do so, it would result in disciplinary proceedings against any individual.
A pleasure boat with more than 100 people on board has sunk in the River Thames in central London.
It happened in the middle of the night with terrifying suddenness. A birthday party aboard a pleasure boat which turned from gaiety into tragedy.
The 20th of August, 1989. One of the worst disasters ever witnessed on the River Thames.
The Marchioness had about 125 people on board, many dancing to a disco on the lower deck.
51 people lost their lives when the leisure boat was struck by a 2,000-ton dredger. A public inquiry found poor lookouts on both vessels were responsible for the collision. Nearly 30 years on, history almost repeated itself. On the 13th of December 2018, another party boat, the Jewel of London, crashed into a pontoon at the side of the Thames. There should have been a lookout on board, but there wasn't.
If 145 passengers were still on board, that could have been absolutely devastating.
The Maritime and Coastguard Agency works to ensure all vessels meet UK and international safety rules.
Whether that be to the public, whether that be to companies or their employees, it's all about safety.
Paula Evans is the investigations manager.
We're here as a team to ensure that safety is adhered to and that we defend everybody that's on the water.
Paula is our defender.
On this particular evening, it could have been a worse disaster than what it already was.
The Jewel of London had been hosting a Christmas party on the Thames.
105 people I'd paid to go on board for a 3-hour trip up and down the Thames. People were obviously partying and enjoying their festivities for Christmas.
The party finished, and shortly before 11 p.m, passengers disembarked at Canary Wharf, leaving 6 bar staff, the captain and his mate on board.
The rest of the crew that were on board were busy clearing up after the party. They were heading back to their mooring at Millbank.
It was cold and dark, and the river was relatively quiet. What happened next was completely unexpected.
The boat veered off its course and collided straight into the marine policing unit.
The entire incident was captured on CCTV.
And that showed the Jewel of London steaming in, hitting into the pontoon. You can see some of the crew are actually on board. You see them lurch forward on the impact. And then somebody started to run up towards the wheelhouse.
The captain had fallen asleep at the wheel, but as the vessel crashed into the dock, he woke with a start.
Obviously the impact, he woke, and in complete disorientation of where he is and what's just happened, he panicked and he put the vessel into reverse, not sure where he was actually reversing to.
It was a bad decision. He crashed into a police boat.
Below deck at that time were 2 police officers on that vessel. There was serious damage caused to the actual police boat, but fortunately no injury was caused to the police officers on board.
The captain started to steer his vessel away, but he didn't get far.
He was stopped by police and brought onto the pontoon where he was interviewed by police officers. And he was breathalyzed, which proved to be negative.
Incredibly, no one had been injured. Paula's team was called in to investigate, and a surveyor assessed the damage.
Photographs do tell 1,000 words, and it'd be very difficult to take a vessel into a courtroom to show a magistrate, a judge or a jury what damage was caused, so the next best thing will be taking photographs.
Documents relating to safety procedures were also seized as evidence.
The Jewel of London is required to have a passenger's safety certificate, and on that certificate there are conditions that stipulate that the vessel has to meet those conditions before it can go on a voyage.
The certificate stated that a lookout was needed in order to operate the boat safely.
The vessel is built in a way that for a skipper to be on board the actual bridge, you cannot see a 360-degree full round view, and that is required. The expectation was the skipper would be driving the boat and there'd be a lookout, an additional on that deck, to make sure that any blind spots on the vessel were being covered.
But, just like the Marchioness 30 years earlier, there had been no lookout on board. In fact, the Jewel of London had been operating without a lookout for 5 years.
Parallels can be drawn between the Jewel of London incident and the Marchioness disaster. The Jewel of London did not have a lookout on board that evening, and neither did the Marchioness. There was so much potential of that turning into a fatality that night. Fortunately, those passengers had disembarked. Had they been on, it may have been a different story.
The captain was fined £1,120. The ship's owners, London Party Boats Limited, had been responsible for ensuring there was a dedicated lookout. The company pleaded guilty to operating an unsafe ship and was ordered to pay £20,000 in fines and costs.
Yeah, it is enforcement. Oh, okay, yeah. This is all about safety. We're not a regulator that would always want to prosecute. We're here to encourage compliance and make sure that people are safe and enjoy their times on the water. I think that the findings of guilt with both parties sends a very clear message to other companies. Cutting corners is not acceptable. This is about the importance of complying with rules and regulations and conditions to ensure that lives are saved.
Rebecca Hartley knows from first-hand experience just how important an early cancer diagnosis can be.
The fact that I caught my cancer quite early was literally the difference between life and death.
These days, Rebecca enjoys a busy life, running a successful business and spending precious time with her partner Paul and son Zach.
Because of what I've been through, I appreciate that time maybe more than most.
But Rebecca's future could have been very different. Back in 2015, breast cancer couldn't have been further from her mind.
I didn't have any experience of cancer, full stop, really. I didn't check myself, didn't consider myself to be in an at-risk group and wasn't really even part of my consciousness.
But then, out of the blue, Rebecca started to feel pain in her right breast.
Within 7 days, I was at the Nightingale Centre in Manchester, saw the consultant. He didn't think it was anything to worry about. I was only 37, so I wasn't in your typical age bracket, but that we did need to get it checked out anyway.
The consultant booked Rebecca in for a series of scans, including a mammogram and an ultrasound. Even then, the diagnosis came as a complete shock.
They could see from the mammograms and the ultrasound that it was a sizable lump, about 2.5 centimetres. It was a grade 3 cancer, so it was really aggressive cancer, so it was growing quickly.
Rebecca underwent surgery to remove the lump, then was put on an 18-week course of chemotherapy.
Chemotherapy was tough. I lost a lot of weight. I felt sick all of the time and felt pretty grotty, really. I spent a lot more time in bed and I was forced to give up work. I also lost quite a lot of my hair. It's a tough experience and one that I definitely wouldn't want to go through again.
Hi, Kai, how are you?
The chemotherapy was successful, but to stop any chance of the cancer ever returning, Rebecca had a double mastectomy.
I feel really lucky that I've been through the process I have and survived and come out the other end of breast cancer. I feel hugely grateful that I'm still here and able to talk about it today.
Rebecca believes her positive outcome is due to the early diagnosis and the prompt treatment she received from our excellent National Health Service.
Getting an early diagnosis was hugely important because it meant that the cancer had stayed localised and hadn't spread any further. Had I not caught it at that point, then it could have been a very different story. So I live my life from a position of gratefulness that I can be here for Zach, that I can be here for my family. Taking action when I did definitely saved my life.
We saw earlier how Staffordshire Trading Standards was investigating bogus claims that this thermal imaging camera could detect breast cancer earlier than a standard breast scan.
This is the VET 2000 secured as evidence as part of the investigation. It was marketed that this device could detect breast abnormalities and breast cancer 8 to 10 years before a mammogram.
Darren Mountford is our defender.
For them to make claims that a machine used in a veterinary setting can detect breast cancer 8 to 10 years before a mammogram is just outrageous.
DITI, or Digital Infrared Thermal Imaging, is a 100% safe.
Sync Thermology Limited was also claiming the scanner was medical grade, approved for use in the NHS, and backed by the British College of Veterinary Thermography.
We contacted Public Health England, we contacted the NHS, we contacted an expert in the field of thermography. They came back to us with answers that it wasn't approved in an NHS setting.
The scanner had not been authorised by the MHRA, and there was no trace of the British College of Veterinary Thermography.
It simply didn't exist. It has never existed. It was all part of a ploy to give kudos and credence to the marketing package. The VET 2000 holds no approval whatsoever for the use for screening on humans.
Claims that the VET 2000 could detect breast cancer earlier than a mammogram were also completely false.
There is no clinical evidence sufficient to make a statement that the thermography devices actually work.
Darren was concerned that anyone attending one of these breast screening clinics and given the all clear could come away with false reassurances. And ultimately, that could cost lives.
Individuals may place a lot of trust in those results whilst unwittingly living with a serious disease which could kill them.
There's no such thing as a victimless crime. Anything that somebody does will have an effect on people. It may be an economic effect, it may be a health effect. These are real people's lives that we deal with, and we have to then follow every avenue we possibly can to try and make sure that nobody else gets affected, but also make sure those responsible for those issues can't do it again.
Lisa Fisher was among those duped into investing thousands in what she thought was a genuine opportunity to make a difference.
It's shocking that these cameras weren't actually licensed for use on humans at all. You literally could have someone's life in your hands.
Lisa and others had been caught up in a complex scam and conned out of thousands of pounds. Darren was determined to prosecute, but the case would rely heavily on the testimony of expert witnesses.
One such expert witness was a consultant breast radiologist. She said that this type of device would never be used within the NHS for the detection of breast cancer, and if it were to do so, it would result in disciplinary proceedings against any individual.
Sync Thermology Limited and the managing director pleaded guilty to fraud by false representation. They were ordered to pay a total of £30,000 in fines, costs and compensation.
We are particularly pleased that she was given an undertaking that she no longer plans to carry out medical screenings on people.
It's a matter of making sure that that person can't do that to people again. And that's the sort of thing that really matters to me as a trading standards officer. You know, I want to know that as a result of something that I've done, I've protected people, and that's what matters.
As far as Lisa's concerned, this case demonstrates just how vital the work of our defenders really is.
It's not just about me and my investment, it's what it could have done to patients. I was very thankful for Trading Standards for listening to what was a very complex case with, you know, so much different information, so many strands to it and so many areas for investigation. I'm very grateful to them for seeing it through.
Breast cancer survivor Rebecca Hartley believes early diagnosis saved her life.
The fact that there was somebody out there using a machine that doesn't do what they say it can do, preying on vulnerable people who felt they needed to understand their risk or that they had breast cancer, just really makes me sick to the stomach. If I had been in that position, I wouldn't be here talking to you now.
Rebecca is now an ambassador for the charity Prevent Breast Cancer. She dedicates her time to encouraging women to get regular screenings.
If you suspect that you have got breast cancer or, you know, anything doesn't look right, just go and see your GP as soon as possible. Don't put it off, don't ignore it, because it could literally be the difference between life and death, and the sooner you pick it up, the better.
Across the UK, our defenders are out there. They're cracking down on those who exploit our fears, who take our money and give us nothing in return, and who place us in harm's way.
When you deal with people who are so upset, who've had their lives devastated, then you need to be a different kind of person to deal with that. When people are being treated honestly and fairly, it's a nice world to live in.
It's not just the contestants put to the test in the latest episode of Gordon Ramsay's Future Food Stars. Watch now on BBC iPlayer. Comedy tonight when Lee tries to be more sociable with the other parents at the school gate. Not going out, here at 9:30.